You are now listening or watching the Shift Training Podcast,
where we talk about mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health and just overall well-being.
Sweet. All right, let's start with why our stories are a powerful tool for connections.
All right, cool. So I think we should start with how stories help you reach and connect with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're working more, have studied more on storytelling as of late.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little rusty, so why don't you take it?
All right. Well, the powerful tool, what we're talking about that in that section is that I think when people start telling stories, that's when we connect with them, because there's this vulnerability aspect when they tell their stories, and it requires some courage when you tell if you're being vulnerable.
Yeah, vulnerability opens the gates to connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think also in stories, like, again, it's like what resonates with us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think resonating plays a role in that, because we tend to open up more
Mm-hmm.
to things that resonate with us or that we resonate with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are many individuals that I resonated with, like our sensei, Jay Shetty, David Goggins, Brandon Burchard. Those are incredible storytellers, and without them, I don't know if I'm going to get that much motivation in my own life.
So stories can help motivate people.
Exactly.
Help get them to move.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's powerful. I think another thing to touch on is why stories are a key part of like how we see the world.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a element of everything that we see has a narrative tied to it, like even a jar or a vase.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with a vase? Well, here comes a story. How does that light work? Well, here comes a story. They're all little stories. Like we make sense of things, but there's always like a narrative. It's pretty much everything, as far as I've learned or been told or been informed by people who are far more informed, is essentially that the human experience is essentially acknowledged through story.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that it's harder to remember facts, research
Or random information. Without connection, without association.
Exactly. But with the story, it's so much easier to remember them. If you think about it, if you watch a movie that has an impact for you emotionally, you remember that instead of like dates, numbers, or whatever it is.
Which you can still remember those things, but the chemicals that get released during emotional experiences help that myelination and keeping stuff trapped in the brain. FYI, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We study all the things. Cool. I think resonating is a key part of what creates a space for vulnerability and openness. So I think that because we see things through stories, right? It's also it's important to be mindful of like what we're actually resonating with, because that plays a role in what we're vulnerable or open to. So for example, if certain stories, let's say you're playing out the story of catastrophe. Everything's a catastrophe. And this person's a victim and that person's a victim. And that resonates with some part of you in your life. You're opening yourself to that. You're being vulnerable with it. It seems to make sense with your past. But you continue to feed or subscribe to it, making it your present. And your present is what predicts your future.
Right.
So if you're always resonating with certain stories or certain things, that's probably the narrative that's continuing to play out in your life. And if you want to change that narrative, and this is why you need to be mindful of the power of stories, is what stories are you subscribing to? What story are you following, and what story should you be following to get to the life that you want?
This reminds me of the word nostalgia. When certain people like to spend most of their time in the past because it feels good, but you're not living the present moment, you're living in the past, then the future will not be there for you.
Yeah, you won't be able to create a future living in the past. And for some people who really idealize, like if their past was amazing, I feel like they might be comfortable with that. But I would challenge them to consider the fact that you could make a future that is more beautiful than the past.
Right.
What about the last part about stories?
How the stories we tell ourselves affect our Connection with others.
Yeah, that one. I'll give an example. That one's easy. If you have a story of nobody likes me,
Okay.
how does that affect how you connect with other people?
Not gonna connect with other people.
Because they don't like you. At least you think so.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's an easy, obvious example.
Yeah.
One that's maybe less like obvious is saying something like, I'm not the type of person who, or I don't do this. And because you're like, I don't do, or I'm not the kind of person that would, you can say something like, get up early in the morning and go to the gym.
Yeah. Easy
one. You can say, I'm not the type of person to do that. First off, that's not even a real construct. That's some false nonsense. You could be whatever you want. Screw that. But to say that means you have now just decided that you are unable to connect with those types of people who do that to some degree, because you have decided that's separate from who you are, who you could be open to or connected with. You're not open to it. So now that has kind of created a wall, not only between you and that possibility for yourself, but some barriers between you and anyone else who does live that reality. Right.
Yeah. You created that disconnect with other people. You did not let that opportunity for you to connect and maybe build some, powerful connection or memories. So I think it's important to have an open-minded with, if it's something that you don't like, could be, a belief or mindset. Sometimes you just got to try it out and see.
Yeah. And you can easily say it's not for me, whatever it may be, but just be mindful of the story that you tell yourself and what you're playing into. And that's going to affect how you operate, but also your connections with other people.
And another thing, when someone says, because I've heard this story where this girl, she just said a sentence along the lines of like, oh, I don't want to do that because of what other people are going to think of me. So that just shows like, that this girl's story is all about people pleasing.
Wow. Feeding right into the people pleasing. Hey. That's a great example. Yeah. So be mindful, guys, of the stories. Stories are powerful, again, to connect with others, to build rapport, but also to help craft the path of your life. It's how we as people view things. It's through stories, through narrative. So it's like, what are you feeding into? What are you subscribing to? What are you living by? And how are you connecting with other people? Well, that's influenced by story.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to also remember your day. Sometimes people would say, oh, days pass by so fast. I think when you start writing stories on what it is throughout your day, you can always have that. You can always find something valuable in the lens of storytelling.
Always. That's what journaling is. And journaling kind of, storytelling practice, basically.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to touch on regarding storytelling?
I think that's it for us.
All right, guys. Well, you can find us at Shift on Your Life on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Yeah, we're back on TikTok now. And also please subscribe or follow at Shift Training on YouTube. And I think that's it for me.
That's it for us.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a great day.